Hey guys. So it was the fall of 2005 when I moved from Washington D.C. to California, kind of on a whim. I mean, I had a decent job lined up, but I had no real reason to move out here. And then on my very first night in Southern California, I went to a work party. My sister was living in Sherman Oaks. She picked me up at the airport, and my bags were in the back of her car. And we went to this party, and I was sitting on the balcony of this high rise in downtown LA. And this girl walked into the party who was just unbelievable. I mean, she was incredible. And I'm sitting there, and she made her way eventually through the people saying hi, and ready to come out and say hi to me because my sister had said maybe I'm going to be moving there. And she kind of made a beeline for the door, and she's walking full stride, and she slammed face first into this sliding door. It was a screen door at the time, and then she fell back on her bottom and flipped her hair back. I remember this day she was wearing a red sweater, jeans, mid calf boots, black, and she was incredible. Her name's Rihanna. I'm now married to her, and right away she just captivated me. And over the course of a couple months and in a series of events, we started dating. And when spring came and that Easter came, I remember I was sitting outside. I was living in Hollywood at the corner of Highland and Melrose, in the thick of it all. And I remember getting an email. This is back when we had Blackberries. If you guys remember the Blackberries, the big blue ones with the gray and black screens. And my brother sent me an email, and it was, I thought, the funniest email I've ever seen in my life. I started dying laughing. Rihanna wanted to know what I was looking at. It was an email completely mocking Jesus, right? I was an atheist. My brother's still an atheist. So is my sister, and my basically my entire family. So I'm looking at this email and I'm reading it, and I thought it was just the funniest thing I've ever read. So Rihanna wants to see what it is. I show it to her. And it's at that point, we'd been dating for a couple weeks, maybe 2 months, maybe something like that. And it was at that point that she came out as a Christian to me. And this was a devastating move to me because I thought Christians were dumb. I thought that I thought they were stupid. I really did. And I would have told you that if you were a Christian and you came to me and wanted to talk at all about anything. And that was just my opinion. And I remember asking her, do you really believe all this Christian stuff? You can't possibly, because you're a really intelligent person. My wife is really intelligent. Rihanna is so smart. And I start asking her more and more questions. Are you telling me that you believe in Adam and Eve? Right? You don't believe in evolution, like the neo-Darwinian synthesis of evolution. And she'd say, no, that's not what I believe. And I thought that was wild. Like, absolutely, I didn't really have a category for it. I thought it was a delusion. I thought she was living under a delusion. And then eventually, we kept dating, and I asked her more and more questions. And eventually she wanted to get involved in a church. So she asked me if I wanted to go to church with her. And I said, absolutely. Up until that point, I've done crazier things for the affections of a woman. So I decided to go with her to church on one Sunday morning, and it was totally strange. I hadn't been to church really, I had never been to an evangelical church. I'd been to a Catholic mass, maybe this many in my entire life. So the experience was really weird. And then she started getting more and more involved, and then she ended up wanting to become a member of this church. So I go with her to the membership classes. They all know I'm an atheist. I'm pushing in on them, not getting the best answers I could ever imagine, but getting some answers, all the same. The culmination of the membership process at this church, which is a wonderful church, they want you to meet with the head pastor and his wife. So Rihanna and I set up that meeting, and she went and she shared her story, which is an amazing story. And I went, and I was convinced in my mind that I was going to debate this pastor out of his faith. I thought that I had the capability to raise objections that not only would he not be able to answer, but would cause him to question, to stumble, and hopefully, in my mind, abandon his faith. Well, I went to him, and Pastor Dave did really, really great at answering some of my questions. A lot of I don't knows. That's a great question, John. I didn't I've never thought of that. I hit him up about carbon dating and evolution and you know, the reliability of the scriptures. But the best thing is like the thing that sticks out in my mind are two. One is he was authentic and real. At the end of the meeting, he shook my hand and he said, "You know what, John, we don't want you as a member." Like, that's what he said to me. He said, "We have enough members right now, John, but thanks for coming. I hope to get to know you more." That was real. He didn't want just my money. And then he handed me a book on what's called Christian apologetics, and that completely changed my life as I started pursuing the questions that I had in my established worldview of naturalism. I was a naturalist, an atheist, a materialist. For our purposes, we'll use those terms interchangeably. I realize there's some differences there, but I was an atheist, and this is the worldview I believed. I believed in you know, natural selection, common descent. I believed in evolution, and this is what I was taught until I met a girl in Southern California in the fall of 2005, and I started to question what I believed, and I started on a journey pursuing truth. So over the next, gosh, I've got 15-20 minutes left with you. Over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to draw, or I'd like to draw on my personal experiences, having gone through a worldview shift, a dramatic worldview shift, by allowing the evidence to impact me. It caused my worldview to fracture, crumble, and then I rebuilt a new one by the grace of God. And in that cracking and crumbling, that worldview shift eventually led me to Christianity. And I'd like to give you just some reasons why I think the Christian worldview is the best explanation for the way the world really is. And I'd like to do that through science. I'm not a scientist. I'm not claiming to be a scientist. I'm just an average guy, you know, that dug into this stuff. And I want to talk to you a little bit about intelligent design. So this is To the Point. I'm John Noyes, and I hope to just impart just some of this to you over the next 20 minutes or so. You know, I think definitions are important. You know, Darwinism, it's important to understand what it is and why this is important. Why should we be talking about this? Well, first, it's the prevailing worldview in academia today. If you're in a major university, even a lot of Christian universities, the prevailing worldview is Darwinism, and that's especially true of the sciences. A couple years back, I had the opportunity to fly out to Poland, the Czech Republic, and Germany. And I was teaching apologetics to a bunch of English learning students at a camp in Germany over the summer. And I partnered with this camp that was a really great experience, that they brought in American college students to teach English to Germans. And in the process, I was brought in as the teacher preacher, and I got to share the gospel and teach some apologetics to these students in the evenings. And I made friendships with these counselors who were American students. And when I got back, Gina, she was one of the counselors. I remember her calling me shortly after we returned. The semester started, and she said, "John, I don't really know what to do." She was at Cal Poly Pomona. She said that on the first day of class, her professor asked the question. It's like straight out of a movie. If you're a Christian here, would you raise your hand? Up went her hand. Up went a bunch of hands in the class. Not everybody, but a lot. And he said, "It's my goal at the end of the semester, when I ask that question, for Christians to raise their hands." Nobody raises their hand. Gina was shocked that her professor, it was a second level, like a 201 philosophy or psychology, I can't remember, class. The text that the professor chose to use that semester was Richard Dawkins' Virus of the Mind. You see, his worldview was leading him in his teaching of his class. You see, why I bring this up and why I think that this is such a big deal is because students are being challenged in this way every single day on college campuses all around this country, if not the world. And my mind asked the question, you know, what is going to happen if you're a student right now watching this? What's going to happen when you're challenged? If you're a high school student watching this, what happens in the next year, the year after, when you're challenged in this way? Are you ready to face the challenges? And how is your worldview, your Christian worldview, going to hold up? If you're a parent, you know, your student's going to be challenged by this type of professor. And how are you going to walk your student that you're seeking to mentor, disciple through it? You see, this is really all very, very important because Darwinism, it's not just a scientific theory. It's not just a theory. Darwinism is an ideology. Okay, Darwinian evolution, the idea that all species arise and develop through natural selection and random mutation, has become more than just a scientific theory out there. It's not a theory like Newton's gravity or Kepler's planetary motion, right? I think I learned this from Sean McDowell, right? We have Darwinism and not Keplerism, right? We have Darwinists, but not Newtonists. So Darwinism, it's the basis for an ideology, and it leads to scientism, right? And it permeates or influences everything that we do. Daniel Dennett, he's a philosopher out at Tufts in Boston, my old stomping ground, right? A really great guy. He looks like the atheist Santa Claus if you look him up. He's one of the atheist four horsemen, right? There was you guys know those guys. So he says this. He says evolution is like a universal acid. It eats through just about every traditional concept and leaves in its wake a revolutionized worldview. With most of the traditional old landmarks still recognizable, but transformed in fundamental ways. You see, it's more than just biology class, right? Evolutionary theory has its effect on every area of life. Even in my studies, right? So my background is law. Well, I have a book. It's actually not on my shelves. I looked for it because I'm going to show it during this video. It must be in one of the boxes because I just moved. Well, I moved like 3 months ago, but I haven't unpacked them all, right? But even in legal studies, right? There's a book, Evolutionary Theory and Legal Philosophy. Right. Or how about in medicine? Another book that I own that I couldn't find, Why We Get Sick. Right. The New Science of Darwinian Medicine. And it's more than just there. To criminology, which is my major at American University. I majored in criminal justice. Evolutionary Criminology Towards a Comprehensive Explanation of Crime is a textbook that I own. You see, this theory isn't just a scientific theory. It's not just touching on evolution as we understand it. It's bleeding into every area of life. It's like a universal acid, and it even affects religion. There's a book out there called Religion Explained: The Evolutionary Origins of Religious Thought, taking a strictly scientific perspective, an evolutionary perspective, and seeking to understand why people believe in the way they do according to religion. This is a worldview issue, guys. It's a narrative about reality and reality's most important issues. This is what Darwinism is seeking to explain. This is what leads you into naturalism. I think it's important. Victor Stenger, an atheist, he says Darwinism implies that humanity developed by accident, contradicting the traditional teachings that humans are special, created in God's image. So also, this is a theory. This is an ideology. This is a worldview that combats, that's in direct conflict with the Christian worldview. The question is it true? Right? Are we accidental byproducts of blind forces of nature, or are we the pinnacle of God's creation, intended by a creator God with meaning and purpose and value and a destiny? These are the most important questions that we can ask ourselves, and how our worldview, or what we hold as worldview, informs and answers these questions. Are we designed, or are we just a random quantification of particles, like bumping into each other, meat suits in motion? This is why it's important, I think, to talk about this. And I'm just going to briefly go into this and hope to offer you guys a perspective. And then make sure, if you guys got questions while I'm going, please type them into the chat, because I'll do my best to try to answer them after I'm done. But type them into the chat. I'd love to hear what you're thinking. When doing research on this topic, I was actually shocked at something. Something's like surprised me. I was shocked at how many Darwinists admit the appearance of design. It seems like even atheists agree. Even Richard Dawkins agrees, right? He says biology is the study of complicated things that have the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. Now, he can't explain where that appearance is from. He can only say they have an appearance of having been designed, because his worldview doesn't allow for a creator God. Well, maybe if it looks designed, though, maybe it's really designed. And we're going to get to an example at the end, but when we see things that carry with them information or design, we know inherently that it's been designed, like an automobile. Like, that somebody made that. It didn't just appear that way. And, even things less complex, which maybe we'll get to. But we shouldn't be surprised that we see design everywhere. We shouldn't be surprised when the world seems to be designed, right? Psalm 19, it says, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim its handiwork. Day by day pours forth speech, and night by night reveals knowledge. So, and I think what the psalmist is doing there, and way before any of this had a name or anything, obviously, what the psalmist is doing, though, is he's talking about the design that he sees all around him. He's seeing that the universe is made in a certain way. His world carries with it the design, and this is intelligent design. And I have a definition here for you. I'm going to try to put it up on the screen because I think, look at that, it worked. What is intelligent design? Well, this is what Stephen Meyer says. He's an expert. He's a philosopher of science at the Discovery Institute. Really smart guy. Just came out with a new book, Return of the God Hypothesis. I was watching a lecture yesterday on it, or an interview rather with him. You got to buy the book. I think Greg is going to be interviewing. Greg Kokel is going to be interviewing Stephen Meyer shortly on his podcast, if he hasn't already. It might have been this week, but I don't know. This is the definition of intelligent design, according to Stephen Meyer: an evidence-based scientific theory about life's origin and development that challenges a strictly materialistic view of evolution. And I think that that's a good definition for it. I think that that's the one that we could use. It's the idea that the world around us has evidence of being designed. And what do I mean by evidence, right? Well, there are at least 5 areas of study where we see evidence of design out in the world, right? There's this cosmology, and this is just a list that I came up with. There's probably more, guys, so don't take this as being a comprehensive list. But there's cosmology, there's biochemistry, there's biology, there's astronomy, and then there's what I'd like to just spend a little bit of time talking about, 5 or 10 more minutes, is physics, right? We're just going to look at that single one, physics. So let's look at how the universe works and physics, and I think that we'll see that God's fingerprints are all over it. So how does physics give evidence for God? I heard this great example once from a famous apologist, but I was listening to this lecture as I was on my way up to this camp it's not Southern California, it's up by the Redwoods, so it's Hume Christian camps. And I go up there every once in a while and speak, and I love speaking up there too. I mean, they have thousands of students up there. It's amazing. And as you're driving up there and you're driving through the windy roads, I mean, it is in the middle of nowhere. You got to go up a mountain and then down into like a crater. And that's where the camp is. And as you're driving up, and it's one of those scary parts that you get to where it's like a cliff. It just drops down right here. Like you could just look over the side. And if you ever went off there, and there's no guardrail or anything, but as you peer out into kind of down the hill and down the cliff, down in through the woods, you see a broken down cabin. Okay, it's a cabin in the woods. And think, I just want you to think of this. Imagine this, okay? Imagine you're walking through and you're walking to that cabin in the woods. And as you get closer and closer to it, you see, or you hear rather, your favorite song emanating from the cabin. Whatever your favorite song might be, Bruno Mars, who knows? I don't even know any modern people. That my mind goes to Bruno Mars first, right? So anyways, you hear your favorite song, the Eagles or whatever, pumping from this cabin, and you're like, wait a second, that's my favorite song. It's amazing. So you start to explore a little bit closer, and then as you get closer, you start to smell your favorite food. Mine's cherry pie, man. I love cherry pie. And you can smell that stuff from a mile away when it's baked really, really good, with the sugar coating on top. It's amazing. So you hear your favorite music, you smell your favorite food. And then as you get closer to the door, you see on the outside, right there on the mat that says welcome, are your favorite shoes. They're shoes that you love to wear. They're brand new, and they're your size. And then you're like, wait a second, this is so weird. And then you see a coat hanging on a rack on the outside. And it's your coat, the coat, from Patagonia that you've always wanted. And it's in your size. And then you say, wait a second, okay, I'm gonna knock on the door. You knock on the door, and the door just kind of like creeps open. So you just look in, and I'm not advocating breaking and entering. Please don't do that. But say that you take a step in, and there you see the TV that you've always wanted, with your video games that you love to play, and all your books are on the bookshelves, like all these, are there for you. And then you look in the fridge, and it's all your snacks. Everything is there that you love. You look in the pantry, and there it is, all those amazing, the Gusher fruit snacks and the things that we're not supposed to eat, especially now that we're old. And then you go to the bathroom, and all your toiletries are there, your particular type of toothpaste and toothbrush, the mouthwash that doesn't sting. And what would you say if this happened to you? If you're walking in the woods and all these things happen to you, the smell of your favorite food, the sound of your favorite music, all your clothes, toiletry, food, and everything like that. Did someone prepare that cabin for you, or did it just happen to be that way by chance? Like, would you say, wow, I would say this is creepy. Like, this is like super creepy. Somebody must have known who's following me, or who knew I was going to come here. Well, the universe is kind of just like that cabin. Actually, there's a scientist out there. His name's Friedman Dyson, and I have this quote. He's a physicist, and this is from Scientific American. And he quotes. He says this. He says, as we look out into not a Christian, mind you, not a Christian. He says, as we look out into the universe and identify the many accidents of physics and astronomy that have worked out to our benefit, it almost seems as if the universe must, in some sense, have known we were coming. This is the fine-tuning argument for the existence of God. If you haven't figured that out already, it's the idea that the universe is so precisely tuned for life that there's no other explanation other than the designer. Fred Hoyle, again, not a believer. He coined the term Big Bang. Actually, he didn't believe in the Big Bang, but anyways, he coined the term way back when. And he says this. He says, a common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics as well as with chemistry and biology, and that there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature. Right. Another illustration that helps me kind of process this is I grew up in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And now I live in Southern California. Well, back growing up, sometimes I have to explain this to my kids. There's this white stuff there in the winter that falls from the sky. Well, it's snow. And you used to wake up early in the morning. Those of you who live in colder climates, you guys are totally going to know what I'm saying. Like you wake up in colder climates and you have a snow in the evening, right? It starts to snow. You wake up early in the morning and you turn the TV on. It used to be, you didn't have the internet. It used to be that you'd watch the news station and you'd have a ticker at the bottom of the screen and it lists your school, and you're looking for your school, Plymouth, canceled. You're looking for a snow day there, right? And then when the snow is enough, we used to gather. There was an area in my neighborhood that was a big hill and it overlooked the main road, and we'd go and we'd make snowballs. And what we'd do is we'd make 20 snowballs each, and it'd be like 10 of us. So we'd have like 200 snowballs, and we'd wait for the snowplows to drive by. And when we saw one coming, we'd grab a snowball, take a couple steps back, lean into it, and pitch it. And you'd have to get the snowball so with the perfect amount of force up and over the tree line, and then hopefully hit the snowplow. And it used to tick them off when we hit them. It was really hard to do. It was really hard to do. But the universe is kind of like that snowball. Like, think of all the things that had to be right with that snowball in order to hit that snow plow. If the ball was the snowball was just a little bit bigger or smaller, it would have either gone far or short. If the angle was just a little bit off, it would have gone into the trees, or it would have gone soared over the road. Or if you used more force, the same thing, it would have gone too far or not far enough if you didn't use enough. Or if the wind changed, all these things had to be in place in order for there to be life. In order for you hit the snowplow. Well, the same thing is true of the universe. Scientists have discovered that the universe is expanding, for example, in every direction. And the mass of the universe is just like the mass of that snowball. It has to be just right. If there's more mass, then the universe collapses in on itself. If there's less mass, then it's going to accelerate into expansion. And either way, you have no stars. You have no planets. You have no life anywhere. Mark Horton, he wrote a great book. He's a PhD in aerospace engineering from Georgia Tech. Super smart guy. He says, if the balance, listen to this, guys, if the balance between gravity and the expansion rate were altered by 1 part in a million billion, 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 there'd be no galaxies, stars, planets, or life, is what he says. Now, that's a really small number. That's a really small number. Altering the mass of the universe just slightly would make it inhospitable to life. And that's just talking about the mass of the universe. Did you guys know that there's 30 physical and cosmological laws that make life permittable, like the force of gravity, for example, strong and weak nuclear forces, electromagnetic forces, entropy levels, gas constants. Like, I mean, the list goes on and on, right? Well, what are the chances of just 2 of these? We're talking just 2 of these to be precisely tuned to allow for an inhabitable universe. Now, when I'm saying this, when it's precisely tuned, it's like dialing in your water when you take a shower in the morning. Right. So you've got you have the hot water and the cold water faucets, and you turn one. And so usually I turn on the hot because it takes a while to get hot. And then I add some cold, and you feel in and you add a little bit more cold, and you get that precisely tuned. So it makes the perfect shower temperature. Well, what are the chances of having 2 knobs on the faucets of the universe, so to speak, with these cosmological forces perfectly lined up, just 2 of the 30 perfectly lined up? The chances are that scientists are saying that it's 1 in 100 million trillion, 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 trillion. That's incredible. Well, how about all 30 of these constants? How about all 30 of these? What are the mathematical odds of finally tuning all 30 of these laws? 1 in 100 million. Oh, sorry. Roger Penrose, he says this. He says, this is really crazy because Penrose is super smart, not a Christian as far as I know. He's a mathematical physicist, I think, whatever that means. He's also a philosopher of science. The dude won a Nobel Prize in physics, so that should be enough, right? And he says this, and I actually have this quote here for you guys, just because it's so unbelievable. If we combined all the laws in that must be fine-tuned, he's talking about the universe, we couldn't even write down the number in full, since it would require more zeros than the number of elemental particles in the universe. Like, just wrap your minds around that, guys. That's incredible. I mean, the chances of this happening are almost nothing. The origin of the very precise and specific initial conditions of the universe that made the solar system, for example, stable in the first place, they require an initial act of design in creation that can't be explained in an irregularity or even a law, because the law needs to be explained. It had to come from somewhere. How do you explain it? Is it change? Is it over time and through randomness, or is it design? To me, it seems indicative of a designer. And as I was doing all my research on this, it seems indicative of a designer. But it's just the worldview, the Darwinism, the scientism, the naturalism, the atheism, the materialism. These worldviews just don't allow themselves, because of the presuppositions, to go to that answer. It reminds me of, and I'm going to try something to play a video here, and it's a really funny video, but it reminds me of a video. Anyways, I'll put the video on and see what happens. Let's see.
The chances are of guy like you and a girl like me ending up together.
Well, Lloyd, that's difficult to say, and we really don't...
Hit me with it. Just give it to me straight. I came a long way just to see you married. Just least you can do is level with me. What are my chances?
Not good.
You mean not good like 1 out of 100?
I'd say more like 1 out of 1 million.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
I mean, what an idiot, right? I mean, why do we laugh though? Like, why? If you're watching this, and I hope it worked, I hope you got the sound right. That's Lloyd Christmas, and he's chasing Mary Swanson all over the country trying to deliver a suitcase of cash, which he ends up spending. And he what are the chances of a girl like me and a boy like you getting together? He's like, not good. 1 in 100, more like 1 in a million. And he's super stoked. Well, it's because the reason why it's so funny is because we all know it's ridiculous. Like the chances of him and her ending up together are nil, none, zip, zero. And that's what she's trying to tell him, and he just doesn't get it. Well, the chances of the universe, because of physical laws around us, of appearing and becoming so precisely fine-tuned to allow for this are I mean, infinitely times more than Lloyd Christmas ending up with Mary Swanson. So, I'd like to simplify it just a little bit, and then we're going to be done. I'm 30 minutes in here. Like, I drove around the country a couple years back. Oh my gosh, I'm getting so old. Probably like 20 years ago now, more. When I graduated college, I drove around the country, and one of the places I went to is Mount Rushmore, right? And when we go to Mount Rushmore, nobody stands there in awe and say, "Wow, this is an incredible act of erosion." Look at what's been done. Look at what Mother Nature has done through erosion. No, we know what it took to make those faces in those mountains, right? It was designed, an incredible feat of engineering, right? Or how about crop circles, for example? Like, I'm a huge alien guy. I love watching those shows online or on the TV about aliens and the possibility of aliens. It's so super exciting to me, and I just love space in general. And what when we see crop circles, like, why do people get all stoked, or why are there so many documentaries on crop circles? They're not sitting there to explain, like, wow, this is an incredible natural phenomenon that happened here. I mean, this is unbelievable. No, they'd say it because it's excitement, because it's supposedly, right? I mean, I don't believe in crop circles, but like, there's always an explanation to them. But that's the point. There's an explanation to them because they require an explanation. Where did these things come from? And some of them are pretty elaborate and amazing, right? I mean, not from aliens, as far as I know, but nonetheless. But the government does have SETI, which is I mean, we spend millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars every single year. Our government does, from our taxes, in order to look out into the depths of space. And actually, there's been some news recently, if you guys keep up on this stuff, about some signals, some radio signals that have been coming through, and we've been detecting. But why do we do that? Well, we look for information. We look for design. We look for things coming to us that seem like they're intentional, because where there's design, there's intelligence. Information always comes from an intelligent source. A book always comes from an author. A text that you get always comes from a texter. A movie always comes from a director, a producer, a writer, or whatever. And the universe came from a creator. There's an order in nature, but it's an order that's been impressed upon nature from the outside. It's not something from the inside, because there's a creator who chose to form to form the world in such a way that's ordered, that would be manifest in nature, that we could detect. It's like a painter who chooses which brush he wants to use to perform every task. There's an intentional artistry behind it. So we've seen in the last 30 minutes, we've seen that what we believe about evolution and design matters, right? And Darwinism, naturalism, atheism. It's important to understand that these things affect all areas of life, and we've seen that there's good evidence for intelligent design from physics and the way that the universe is created, the way the universe just is, why it's even possible. And it wasn't always this way, guys. God used for me. I didn't always believe this. I was a different person 15 years ago, and I believed something completely different. And I would have made fun of you if you tried to defend these positions to me. But I think that there's good reasons to believe them. I think there's good evidence. You see, God used a girl and a lot of honest questions to change me. And I believe in Christianity because it's true. That's why I do this. That's why I'm not working in a high-powered law firm anymore. That's why I'm a lay pastor and a speaker with stand to reason. I don't do it for money, fame. I don't do it for popularity. That's for sure. Famous enough. It's like I'm known by God. I do it because and I believe what I believe because it's true. And I think there's good reasons to believe what we believe. It's not this false definition of faith that I buy into. It's not a blind leap. No, it's belief based on evidence, and I believe things because they're true. And if it's not true, I don't want to believe it. I'm open to that. And so are we just a product of time, chance, and randomness, or are we fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of a creator God? The heavens, they declare the glory of God, and the skies proclaim its handiwork. I feel like that is just a better explanation than the naturalistic ones. So now let me just take a look real quick at some of the comments over here and see what we got going on. And Harmony, if you're watching, like, you can totally help me out. Harmony is our social media coordinator, and she's fantastic. So, hey, Ava, it's good that you're here. Stand the reasons here. That's good. What put you over the top? Oh, wow. Okay. The Doctor knows. I love that. That's such a good name, man. The fun. Okay. Anyways. Okay. So there were a number of things. One is this type of pursuit, but I started this off. If you were at the very beginning, I'm not a scientist. I don't pretend to be. I'm learning every day still. But when I looked out at the world around me, I noticed certain things, and my worldview of atheism wasn't really able to explain them to my satisfaction. First is, as I looked out into the world, it seems like there was a moral depth to it, a moral realism. As I was an atheist and pursuing atheism, I was a firm believer in a relativistic morality. Don't bother me, I won't bother you. What's right for you might not be right for me, but just as long as you're not hurting anybody, and that kind of thing. And I realized that as I started to live that way, I started pursuing things that, it was hedonistic, right? I was a hedonist. And as I started pursuing those hedonistic desires, I was just being honest with myself, man. It led to some really dark places pretty quickly. And I realized the things I were doing actually did have consequences, not just for me, but for other people. The things that I said wouldn't have, there was victimless crimes, so to speak, weren't victimless. So there was a moral oughtness to the world around me that I couldn't explain through my atheism. The second is what we've kind of been talking about, just a different vein. The second is there was the stuff around me. Why is there something rather than nothing was a big question I wrestled with. When I looked out into the night sky, I just had a sense of wonder and awe. And where'd that come from? That's the third reason. But the second reason is like, where did it all come from? Right? What was the original cause? Because something had to cause all this. Like, and I started digging into apologetics around that time when I was really wrestling with this in my mid-20s. And I found I didn't find the answers from my worldview satisfactory. As far as everything, like the Kalam cosmological argument, right? Everything that begins has a cause. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe had a cause. What is that cause? And when I started really wrestling with that, and then the third was there was something that seemed in us all that seems to transcend just the physical realm. I'd now say it's my soul, it's an intellect, your mind, whatever you want to call it. There's something in us that's immaterial that transcends, that lives on. And it started for me in that sense of awe and wonder as I looked out to the night sky. Where does that sense of awe come from? Like I don't buy the rationale that it's based on a neo-Darwinian synthesis that this is a developed response to stimulus around us in order to somehow aid in our survival. It's also introspection. Like, we are every waking moment of every single day, we are consciously aware of ourselves. What is that? I can think in my mind, even as I'm talking to you guys, I can have separate thoughts in my mind. How does physicalism and atheism, or how's Darwinism, scientism, how do these things explain that? So those are things that, and then the real nail in so there's two more reasons. One would be the problem of evil, which is very closely related to the moral realism that's out there in the world. I used to raise the problem of evil all the time to my Christian friends as a defeater for God, right? That was my coup de grace, my nail in God's coffin is what I called it. And like as it turned out, when I started digging into it, it was actually a problem for me. And that's actually the topic I'm going to be speaking on next month, right here on To the Point. So, and then the last is when I started digging into the resurrection, man. The evidence for the resurrection, I think, is overwhelming. The resurrection of Jesus is like so. If Jesus has not been raised, then we're still dead in our sins, right? We're to be pitied above all men, is what Paul says. You know, if Jesus hasn't been raised, we should just give up and go to another worldview, whatever that might be. But as I started digging into the resurrection, kind of almost seeking to disprove it, but not really. It wasn't like a Lee Strobel type thing. I was just wrestling with all this stuff, and I wanted to believe what was true. And when I started looking seriously at the resurrection, it was like lights out for me. I remember sitting thinking on my couch in Hollywood one night, reading a book, trying to explain the evidence for the resurrection, all in light of itself, right? With explanatory, it's coming up with a hypothesis that's more that robust than the Christian hypothesis that God raised Jesus. I literally thought to myself, I can remember this. I said, well, maybe aliens came and took Jesus and healed him really, really fast. And then I was just like, man, if I'm willing to do this, aliens, really, then what are my presuppositions here that are keeping me from, what are my biases that I need to really revisit and look at? So that's the long answer. It could be longer to your question, Dr. Knows. I love it. Click on these links, guys, that Harmony Stand to Reason is posting. Brett Kunkel, he's a pretty smart guy. He's nice. Kokol is amazing. Live from New York. I love it. Don, is that Don L? I love it, man. Man, I miss the East Coast. Although, are you guys getting hammered right now? You guys might be getting hammered right now with snow. Don, it's good to see you. Let's see here. There's too many coincidences for them all to be coincidences. The Palladian, the Paladin. Nice. Dude, I agree with you. Right? This is this comment. There's too many coincidences for them all to be coincidences. That's right. And I'm like I said, guys, I'm open to look at the other worldviews. I just don't think there's a better one. There's something that has a better explanatory power, explanatory scope, robustness of the Christian worldview. So, I mean, that's yeah. From Twitter, I have a question here that just got to text me. Define information. Man, that's a good question. Define information. I don't know. I have to think about that. Oh, wait, let's get rid of this one. I guess Twitter can't post on here. I don't know. That's a great question. Who's that from, Harmony? Well, maybe you could just post that. Let me think. Let me think about that as I go on. So let's see here. This one here. As a former atheist, how do you recommend Christians approach atheists? And should we do it and not do? What should we do and not do? So as a former atheist, how do you recommend Christians approach just as friends, man? I mean, the thing is there's no magic formula here that's just going to like convert your atheist friends. I mean, it's a spiritual battle. It's God who softens heart. I really like using the tactics that Greg teaches in his book Tactics. Especially Columbo. Like I ask a lot of questions. So, what do you mean by that? How did you come to that conclusion? And can you clear something up for me? Because I just like listening to the way people talk and what they say. And it's like, for example, when my family is talking to me about stuff, I'll ask a question, like they'll appeal, especially during the political season. It's always really great. And it feels like we're always in the political season now, but like it's, if a moral issue comes up, I'll ask them like why they believe what they believe. I'm trying to think off the top of my mind an issue. I was just talking to my brother. I was just back east in Maine, and I was just talking to him, and abortion came up, and he said that he's, he is pro-life, but he just doesn't think it's his role to keep that right of abortion from other people, right? He doesn't want to force his morality, is how he said. He's pro-life. So I asked him, and I mean, I didn't have any agenda in the conversation, and I just asked him, like, well, why are you pro-life? Like, what about abortion has you take the stance of being for life in this instance? And he'd answer that. I forget what he said. And it's oftentimes broken conversations and stuff. But I ask a lot of those questions to him. Well, okay, so you believe there's something that happens with an abortion. Is it wrong? Why is it wrong? Is it wrong just for you? Like, is it wrong just for you to have an abortion, or do you think it's wrong in all instances, and why or why not? And then when you press those, like when you press those questions, oftentimes what I feel like, and Greg points, I think he says this in his book, you get what I call the Simon and Garfunkel response. It's the sound of silence. Oftentimes, because I don't think a lot of times people have thought these things through. So I ask a lot of questions, man. I'm a relational person, so I just like talking. I just like talking to people and figuring out where they're at. And the thing with questions, the best part is there's very little responsibility, at least on you. There's very little pressure. You're just kind of on a fact-finding mission. You're just kind of, probing the people, and don't be annoying with the questions, and try to work them in an authentic and a real way. But that's how I do it with my atheist friends. Like when somebody's an atheist, like my brother or my sister or my friends who are atheists or don't believe in in Jesus, when they say something that's curious to me that I don't think lines up or is consistent with their worldview, I'll bring it up. And usually it's in the form of a question. And I really like questions. Yeah. I don't bear the burden. I'd like, oftentimes one of the things that we as Christians, I feel like what happens to us is we take on too much of the burden on ourselves. So we are zealous for God, which is really great. And I really want to see my family saved. I really want to see them know Jesus. I want them to see Jesus of Nazareth, this man from Nazareth, as I see him, as God. I really want them to know what I know. So I'm excited to talk to them about it. But oftentimes what happens is that excitement turns into, all right, now I feel like I have to answer every single question, or I have to back up every single claim that I'm not even making necessarily. Oftentimes people will say stuff to me. Jesus never existed. Sometimes we run into that claim and we're just like, oh yeah, well, blah, 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 blah. Here's Josephus and here's Tacitus and here's New Testament and here's the Old Testament prophecies and when instead that's really interesting. Jesus never existed, huh? Like, you mean he never existed at all as a human being, or he didn't exist in the way that I think he existed? You see how I'm seeking clarity here? No, I don't mean he never existed as a human being. He just doesn't. He's not who you think he is. Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. Well, how'd you come to that kind of conclusion? Like what are you basing your opinions on this matter? Instead of me charging in and trying to offer 15 reasons why Jesus is God, I'm just now having a conversation with somebody. And again, and oftentimes what I love is sometimes light bulbs go off, and not in that people come around necessarily to our position, but sometimes light bulbs go off and people realize, I mean, this happens for me. People realize basically, maybe I don't really know what I'm saying. Maybe I read an article, or now I feel like, maybe I've read a Facebook post or a Twitter, 160 characters, whatever it is. And I feel like I know what I'm talking about, but all I have is slogans. This happened to me actually this last weekend, not last weekend, 3 weekends ago now. When I was in Maine, I came across a pro-choice rally, and in my hometown, and I had awesome conversations with people. Nobody got mad at me. Nobody's screaming at me, but I had great conversations with people. I had one guy come up to me and say, because I just was, I was preaching the gospel a lot, but also I was just trying to put stones in somebody's shoe. A woman tried to save a dog. A dog was rolling in a stroller, which is just like bizarre to me anyway. If you have a dog stroller, I'm sorry. It's not an offense to you or affront to you, but the woman lost control of the stroller with the dog in it, and all these people with pro-choice signs like ran after the dog to make sure it didn't go into a main road. And I thought that was really curious. So, of course, I just asked. I had my 5-year-old daughter on my shoulders, and I'm just asking. Like, I find it really odd that you're holding signs advocating for the killing of the preborn while trying to chase after to save the life of an innocent human. I mean, of a dog. I find that weird. Like, why? And then one guy came to me and said, "Well, science doesn't say that a fetus is alive." And it was a great conversation. I got to actually say, "Well, actually, sir, I think you're mistaken. Like, I don't know if you've actually read, the stuff that I've read, and let me offer you some information about that. It's actually almost every modern embryology textbook claims that a unique human life starts at the moment of conception. This is science." And then he switched his tactic and said, "Well, Jesus never said." I said, "That's fantastic. I'd love to talk to you. Like, why do you think that Jesus? You think that Jesus didn't weigh in on this subject? Really? Okay, that's really interesting. What do you think about this instance?" And I told him about John the Baptizer and Jesus before they were meeting. Before they were born, they met. Right? You had a zygote Jesus, first trimester baby, and you had a second. You had a fetus, a second trimester John the Baptizer, meeting together, and John seemed to recognize Jesus just being in his presence, and boom, and announced his arrival by leaping in his mother's womb. How do you explain that? Like, from a Christian worldview, right? And we got into a good conversation. I didn't win him, but it was just through questions and stuff. That's another really long answer to your question. Let's see here. Tim Barnett breaks down just how fortunate our universe really is. He does a great job here, actually. Tim does science is like Tim's thing. And he's a really great educator. He's used to teaching. He was a teacher before, Stand the Reason. And I think he taught science, if I'm not mistaken. But I've learned so much from him. I'm sure that some of the stuff in what I said tonight is directly from him. I'm sure of it. He's fantastic. So Tim Barnett. And let's see here. Oh, you know what? I saw this earlier that Doctor, you corrected me on this. I think you might be right. I'm not 100% sure. I didn't have like my big notes in front of me. I just had a couple bullet points. So yeah, Freeman Dyson, he might believe in God. Maybe I thought he was agnostic, but I could be totally wrong. Maybe I don't know. I'd have to look into it. But either way, he's not a Christian, and his quote's amazing. So I'll use it. Steve Van Kulen, I love you. I think you're amazing. Steve's one of my best friends, and he's always watching because he's so cool. Okay, let's see here. Let's see. And Steve, question: how did dinosaurs work into intelligent design, and how as Christians can we handle the differing views? Steve, man. All right, I've got like a couple minutes left, and then I gotta go. But why not end on this one? I think that the stuff that I talked about this morning was about this evening is kind of the how the universe came to be, those initial preconditions, number one, but then also the conditions that we currently find around us that can keep life. So this actually, everything I said tonight actually doesn't necessarily even conflict with Darwinian evolution. I'm not a Darwinist. I'm not an evolutionist in the common like ancestor sense, in the species evolving into another species. That's not my view. But the stuff that I put out here tonight actually, I think, is agreeable, or can be at least agreeable to even someone who believes in Darwinian evolution, like a Francis Collins would, I think, agree with almost everything I said tonight. I do a radio show, apologetics.com. On KKLA, and my co-host every third Saturday of the month, it's Science Night. Dr. Leslie Wickman. She's now going to be at Biola, I believe. But this woman is amazing. She's an astronaut, like straight up. Like, she's a rocket science by training, and super smart. She's worked at a bunch of different colleges. She's fantastic, and she would agree with everything I said tonight, I think. And while also affirming, I think. maybe I shouldn't put this on her, but I think that she agrees. She's more sympathetic to the evolutionary perspective than I am. How about I say that? So I haven't really disagreed with that. And dinosaurs, for example, I don't see any reason why dinosaurs can't be part of God's design and creation. As far as differing views on 4 billion years versus 4,000 years, I'm open to anything. I'm an old Earth guy. That's where I land. I think there's good evidence that points to an old universe, an ancient universe, but I'm also a young creation, special creation guy. Like when I read the Genesis accounts, I feel like their history and the creation accounts are specific enough for me to, I mean of Adam and Eve, right? I'm not talking about the days, so I think there's a good discussion there to have. Yum is the main word of contention, YUM. If you want more on that, there's a 3 views book, 3 views of evolution, or no, 3 views of Genesis. It's one of those 3 views books that I'm sure I have somewhere right behind me, right here. This is a great book, The Genesis Debate. So this is 3 views on the days of creation. And so you've got 24-hour view, the day age view, and the framework view, all written out. The authors interact with each other. Fantastic resource if you want to dig into that. But I don't see an issue. My main concern with this conversation is I feel like it's a distraction from the gospel oftentimes, guys, straight up. I feel like oftentimes we spend so much time arguing about the age of the earth that we forget that we have a lot of work to be doing. And I don't think the days of the earth, how old the earth is consequential to our conversations that we should be having out there in the world. And oftentimes the distraction as the onworking world looks in on us. I mean, when the world looks in on the church, they should see a preview of the future. And what I mean by that is that they should see the new creation that's here but not yet, the consummation of heaven and earth. They should see a preview. It's a theater of the future, a preview of what's to come. And when they see strife over the age of the earth, it's just not a good testimony. I don't think it doesn't bode well. It doesn't look good for the church. These are in-house discussions that I think are valuable to have, and they are important. Don't get me wrong, but when they distract us from doing gospel work, I think it's tragic. And I think there's good evidence on every side. I think I'm an old earth guy. I think the evidence is pretty compelling. And that's why I'm not a young earth creationist, but I am an old earth creationist. So good question there, Steve. I'm sure I didn't answer all of it, but I answered it good enough for me. How about that? No, there's so much here. Let's see. Maybe one more. I got 3 minutes. Let's see here. Question, Steve Van Kulen. Let's see here. CO110. Evolution isn't supposed to explain existence. It describes the process that ended with the diversity of species. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So C0110, this is the point I just made when I was answering Stephen, right? I think technically speaking, from what I was saying, I think the evolution, like somebody who believes in Darwinian evolution can also agree with the things that I was saying, because the evolution starts sans creation, right? So it doesn't seek to explain biogenesis, right? So it doesn't seek to explain first life. It starts at first life and then goes. No, totally cool, man. I think it's a really good point to bring up. And at the beginning, the reason why I think that this is so concerning, the reason why this is so concerning to me is because Darwinism has jumped out of, a mere scientific theory like gravity or planetary motion, stuff like that. It's jumped out. Like I said at the beginning, we don't have Keplerism, we don't have Newtonists, but we have Darwinists. And so nobody's writing books on how planetary theory describes law or informs law or medicine or anything like this. But we've got now evolution is it's not just stuck in the where I think there's some helpful things to be said about it. So it's crossing over, and it's become a worldview in and of itself. Darwinism is what I said. So hey guys, I'm gonna sign off now, and I'm just so grateful. Thank you guys so much for watching, and again, make sure that if you guys have more questions on this, or I didn't get to your questions, I know I never circled back to the information. You know what? I'm going to write a blog post on what information is and on this stuff. So keep your eye out for it on the str.org webpage, and go there for any more questions that you might have. We have so many resources at str.org that I can't even begin to describe. It's amazing. It's a brand new webpage. We've been updating it. It's updated, I think, 2 or 3 blogs a week, new original content all the time. And this topic, as you've seen in the comments, as Harmony posted a bunch of stuff there for you. There's lots of information there for you, and on more. So for now, guys, that's it for me. This is To the Point, and I'm John Noyes for Stand to Reason. I'm grateful for you guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. I'll see you next month, last Wednesday of the month. We're going to be talking about the problem of evil. It's going to be a good one. So I hope to see you there. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.